welcome to the Art of Costume podcast. I'm Melissa Joy Glass.
And I am Aegon Targaryen, but you could just call me Spencer. There's a
You
lot
would
of
be
us.
an Aegon. You would be an Aegon. They'd be like, what generic name
Just give him
can we
Aegon.
give this one? There's too many Aegons. I'm going to be real.
That's
There's
what I'm
too
saying.
many.
That's why I go by Spencer, because there's just, Anyways, welcome to the Art of Costume podcast. Today's episode is all about the House of the Dragon.
Yes. One of our favorite TV shows.
Oh, we love this show. I mean, we're big Game of Thrones people.
Yeah.
We've done a House of the Dragon episode before.
Season 1.
For season 1, which feels like eternities ago.
It was years ago now.
But we love season 2 and we want to talk about, plus we have a special guest today. So
we do.
We're like, well, time to do House of the Dragon again. Should we get into it? What happens this season?
Let's get into it, Spencer. Give us a summary.
As the war between Rhaenyra and the Hightowers heat up, each side suffers devastating losses, but Rhaenyra finds an unexpected way to strengthen her army, and that is season 2 of House of the Dragon.
It literally is. It's just like murder, death,
it's murder, preparation.
Yeah.
Obviously it's going to go down in season 3.
Yeah.
And we know that for sure.
Yeah.
It's, we're nerds and we're prepared for this sort of thing.
We've checked it out. We've been like, so what's going to happen?
We've sussed it out. So this felt like the prep season, but
it was.
Even though it was, I feel like the costumes were extraordinary.
Oh, they killed it. So let's go behind the costumes. We have showrunner Ryan J. Condal and costume designer Caroline McCall. You will know her work from seasons 3 and 4 of Downton Abbey, Will, Jamestown, and His Dark Materials.
I know some of these shows.
You do?
I've been wanting to start Downton Abbey so badly. It's something I know I'm going to fall in love with, but it feels like there's so much I've been afraid to dip my toes in.
Same.
Anyways, let's get to House of the Dragon. Such a good season, like we said. Caroline McCall was fantastic. I feel like the costumes felt a little bit even more elevated in season 2.
Yeah.
Maybe because they knew that it was happening. Season 1 could have gone either way.
Yeah.
I loved it, but after the downfall of Game of Thrones, so to say, which a whole other episode, people weren't sure if House of the Dragon was going to work out.
Also, House of the Dragon, they had 2 separate casts almost.
Yeah.
And it was spread over so much more time.
Mm-hmm.
So they really had to be like, okay, what is it for the younger crowd? What is it for the older crowd?
Yeah.
Like, they even had some flashbacks, like when her father became king.
Right.
So they were working with uncertainty and just a lot of material in season 1.
Yeah, and it's hard to settle on like the look of the show when the look changes every other episode. So season 2, I really feel like it starts to settle and we start to see like these changes in Rhaenyra. And I mean, I was gonna say Daemon, but he goes on like a side quest to a haunted Luigi's mansion for like the entire season.
Yeah, he has like a forced like find yourself quest in a haunted mansion.
Let's get it all out of the way though,
Yeah.
Because I don't want any like
they're like, Daemon, we need you in tip top shape, so get over it.
Yeah, exactly. So Caroline McCall joined me in studio for an interview the other day to talk about House of the Dragon. And we got to talk about everything. We talked about her inspirations, her research into medieval times, which is really what she went back to for House of the Dragon, which is something I always wondered. Like, is that an obvious thing, So asked her about that. We talked, of course, about Rhaenyra. We talked about Harrenhal and Daemon's Luigi's Mansion journey. And we spent a lot of time talking about episode 4, I believe, the Rook's Rest battle, where we see lots of dragon fire, lots of barbecued soldiers.
Lots of devastation.
Lots of devastation. So we really got to get into all of that. It was a great conversation, and I hope you all enjoy after this break. Caroline McCall will be here.
Can't wait to listen.
Hi, I'm Dan, who does all the magic behind the scenes. I wanted to say thank you, and if you want to support the show even farther, go to tpublic.com/user/theartofcostume, where you can buy a couple variations of our logo on t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. Also, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're an audio listener, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Now, back to the show.
I am so happy to welcome to the podcast the costume designer for House of the Dragon Season 2 and on costume designer Caroline McCall. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Before we get into it, I just have to say congratulations on this series. It's difficult to put into words just how beloved this series is. Coming into season 2, it just looked so incredible. The costumes are, of course, amazing. The action. I mean, people love this show. And you were also nominated for the prestigious Excellent in Sci-Fi Fantasy Television CDG Award, which is amazing. Yeah. So what has this experience been like, seeing the love for the show and the costumes as the fans begin to engage with your work in that second season?
Yes, it's quite extraordinary, really. Yeah. And really, really lovely. Really, my first encounter with fans really was that we did a Comic-Con. We went along to a Comic-Con, and it's just it's incredible the work that people go into to create our work. Right. And there'd only been a trailer. They'd only seen a trailer of Series 2, and some people had we knew you were coming, so it had to be from Series 2. So had tried to recreate recreated amazingly from little snippets some of our work from Series 2. So it's the highest form of flattery, really.
Let's talk about your preparation for the series House of the Dragon. It's so much more than just, the blacks and greens. It's not a simple color palette show. I imagine there must have been a lot of preparation, getting yourself into the mindset of Westeros, research, museums. What did that look like for you, trying to get into that Westerosi mindset?
So the brief really for this show is it's a real world, but it just happens to have dragons.
Right.
So you and it's the same with any project, really. You're looking at the social, political, economic situation people are in, all manner of things. But along with that, with Westeros becomes this whole history of the entire world, and so it's a deep dive into that. And obviously, I watched Game of Thrones, and,
of course,
and obviously Series 1 as well, and then trying to work out, obviously the political situation is different, and some of the houses are quite different in our time period to Game of Thrones. But it's had to go across the whole of Westeros and figure out where the geography and who's aligned with who, and it's a lot of research.
Yeah. So before we dive into the individual characters, I've kind of like to set the scene a little bit, because season 2, it's really setting the board for this huge war that's about to begin. There's some conflicts that have happened here and there, but we really haven't hit the go button on this huge conflict that's about to come. And what I think is interesting in terms of the costumes is the Greens of King's Landing. They're now moving into, they have the throne, so I feel like they get a little bit more opulent. They're not really too concerned with dressing to prepare for war. But Rhaenyra and the Blacks, they really feel like they're kind of a little bit more minimalist and taking this a little bit more seriously. Was that intentional in how you want to display the costumes in season 2?
Yes. I felt there was a natural transition for me coming into Series 2 in terms of where these houses were, and that Rhaenyra is now in Dragonstone, and the Greens have taken King's Landing. And I felt that the costumes for Series 1, that King's Landing had a kind of a traditional medieval feel to it, and that sort of showed that perhaps Viserys' rule. It had been peaceful, and he'd assimilated into Westerosi culture. But actually, the Targaryens and the Valerians are from old Valeria,
Right.
which for me represented the ancient civilizations, all the technology and finery that those ancient civilizations had. And I felt that when Rhaenyra is really trying to claim that she is the queen, that she is the one true queen, that she's leaning heavily into her Targaryen heritage. And so that side of the family, they all start dressing in a more Targaryen fashion. And that was heavily influenced by, I loved what Jani had done with the Dragon Keepers and the wrap over style. And I also felt that Daenerys as the last Targaryen in Game of Thrones, that she would have been leaning, there was always a Targaryen influence in her clothing, and it got more so towards the latter series. But the scaled smocking, the silhouette. So I wanted the Targaryens to feel that they had their own silhouette and their own style, which is different to the clothing worn by the Hightowers on King's Landing.
Right. Let's dive into Queen Rhaenyra. Well, in my mind, Queen Rhaenyra. She's gone through a tremendous amount in this season, grappling with grief and anxiety of this impending war that, in ways she feels like is totally unnecessary because this is over one huge disagreement. And also just how costly this war is going to be. It feels like it really wears on her. But then we have this moment where she has this conversation with Alicent in the Keep. And you could just tell that her mindset kind of shifts from feeling kind of sorry about this to like, all right, we need to get this done. And I feel like with that brings this evolution for Rhaenyra and her costumes going forward, where she feels a little bit more moving into this powerful role. I'd love for you to talk about Rhaenyra this season and kind of the costume story we see for Rhaenyra.
So she starts at the beginning of the series. She's much more in a sort of dress silhouette.
Yeah.
And the scaled textures and opulent fabrics. And then as we move throughout the series, she's transforming into more of the dragon rider that she is. So the silhouette shifts and it gets slimmer and more practical for dragon riding. So to give the impression that, she could go on her dragon if she needs to.
Yeah.
But also there is maintaining her regal status. There is still a feeling of being a monarch about it, even though it's more practical.
Yeah, it feels like Rhaenyra is staying ready, so she doesn't have to get ready.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Alicent as well. Alicent finds herself wielding significant power this season, but begins to slip away as this council evolves. Her children take control, becomes more of a men's club once again, and Alicent starts to push away from it. Can you walk us through what we see with Alicent and her costumes in season 2?
Well, we start off with her very much in the green, like the true green of the Hightower house, and as the season goes on, it kind of heads more from the green into the teal, and then by the end, when she meets for her meeting with Rhaenyra, they're both in the colours of their childhood. Yeah, when that final meeting is like the first. I wanted to echo the first time we see them together in series 1, where Rhaenyra's in grey and Alicent's in blue, where she's trying to shift. Alicent's really trying to get herself out of this mess that she's created. But then, in the middle of the season, when they meet in the Grand Sept, Alicent's praying in the Grand Sept, and she's in this green dress, and it is it's embroidered with, and it's actually it's all weeds and thorns.
Wow.
And she has a sort of reference to weeds and thorns in her embroidery, sort of throughout the show, to show that the tangle web she's woven herself, the mess that is of her own creation.
Yeah.
But what that's symbolizing, that she's trapped herself in this by making some terrible decisions.
Yeah. Wow, that's one of my favorite costumes too. It just really speaks to this like huge failure of communication that has led to this huge disaster.
Yes.
It makes you want to shake them. Let's talk about. We're all huge fans of Emma Darcy and Olivia Cooke. They are incredible in this series, and I love the arcs that these two characters go on in the second season. I just want to ask you, was it like collaborating with these two incredible cast members?
Oh, an absolute joy. They are fantastic actors, and it is wonderful collaborating with them and having their input too, and where we want to take the characters and what little tidbits we hide in their costumes. The clothes are so completely different to contemporary clothing, and so you can't help but feel completely different once you put them on, and particularly for some of the people wearing armor. That is a completely different feeling, and to kind of and feel like you've put on the clothing of war. For example, when we created Bethany, who plays Bela's dragon riding costume, that was a real treat, with her chainmail sleeves.
That's such a good one.
Yeah.
Another character that I feel like wears a lot of great costumes I love, but also goes on such an interesting journey this season, is of course Daemon, played by Matt Smith. He's on his own journey that involves a lot of darkness, rain, spooky witchcraft, all sorts of things. So what was your approach to work with Daemon and this very eerie quest? Because it almost feels like in ways you could have approached it like a whole different show with this character, because the setting is just so different. And he goes through dream sequences, and he's in the woods. There's a lot happening for poor Daemon in this season.
Well, basically, we wanted Daemon to have a wardrobe of clothes and just a couple of outfits that he would have had with him when he went to. He's not expecting to be there the length of time. I think that he owned things that happened to him. So it's really important that his clothes, his gambeson under his armor and his shirt, and then he has another dragon riding leathers, that they felt like they just feel like Daemon's clothes.
Yeah.
And then whatever scenario he's in, getting up in the night or throwing something on, that it just feels an appropriate part of his wardrobe. Yeah, practical. It's either his armor or it's his clothes for dragon riding. And I think that, I left his frivolity behind from series one. He's sort of stranded. Yeah. He's stranded in Harrenhal with very few possessions. Yeah. And he's just got to rough it.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's so funny to think about. Yeah, because he couldn't wear his dragon armor every single day.
Yeah, no.
So for the rest of this interview, I'd love to focus on a specific episode that I just think is so fantastic. Episode 4, the Red Dragon and the Gold, the devastating battle that takes place at Rook's Rest. First, can we just talk about your team? It is such a massive episode, and these armies come together. I mean, there's metalworking, there's leatherworking, there's not to mention the dragon fire that is burning, armor and breaking down all of these costumes.
Yeah. Can we talk about dragon fire for a minute?
Yeah, I would love to.
I think the general public, when they see people burning, they think that's a visual effect.
Right.
But it's not.
No.
It's not. We we dress stuntmen up and we set them alight. So all, so all those people burning at Rick's Rest in episode 4 and at the Dragon Seed episode, being burnt by dragon, they are very nice stuntmen who have been dressed up and set alight.
So, I mean, people don't realize that is a big part of the costume process too. Like you have to think about, I mean, tell us about how you break these costumes down.
Well, I'm very fortunate. So that's another part that is so important in this, trying to create a real world. Yeah. You know, and where, you know, in a world where clothing is a necessity and would have been very expensive. So, you know, whatever you have, you're going to wear it. So everything has to look really lived in. So it's really important. The breakdown department are really important to make everything look real once it's going to set. When it's going to set and then be there when we're doing battles or, you know, to cover things in soot and dirt and blood and try and make it look real. So yes, we have my cutters and the making workshop, and then we have a dyeing and breakdown workshop and the leather workshop and the armory workshop.
Oh gosh. And
we facilitate, we shoot 2 units at the same time, the majority of the shoot. Wow. So whilst we were on location at Rick's Rest with those armies, we also have a unit at Alicent Studios, and we were also shooting the Dragon Seed episode at the same time, which is another big episode.
I'm getting stressed out, and it happened like 2-3 years ago. So it's a massive feat of organization, right?
And then, you know, you don't have one costume. You need to have multiple costumes for a lot of the stunts and extras. As you know, you go through a battle and the various stages of maiming and damage. So it's quite a feat of organization. Yeah.
Well, another character I want to talk about that's very integral to this specific episode is Princess Rhaenys, played by Eve Best, who I have to admit is my favorite character. I have the shirt on. I don't know if you could see. We got her right there.
I love Eve.
She such a great character, and in this moment when she's riding her dragon Meleys, she wears her just incredible, stunning armor. And I want to ask you about the armor, and also how you were just talking about stunts, how it interacts with her also riding this, you know, mechanical piece, which is supposed to be her dragon at the same time. So the costumes have to be able to work for sitting and riding a dragon at the same time, even though dragons aren't real, but you have to pretend like they are.
Yes. Yeah. So we took, because Rhaenys wears that armor from series 1 into series 2. So it's Jani's armor designed from series 1. And then we altered it for series 2 in order to make it more articulated.
I see.
So that you could articulate. So there's different panels in it, so that the whole body can articulate whilst you're on the dragon, because that was something that was really important to me, because I felt if you are a dragon rider, your movement would want to be in tune with the dragon.
Yeah.
So, which is what we did on Aegon's armor, that it is articulated plates, so that you, even though it's armor, it will move in tune with the dragon. So we did that, and then we really broke it down, worked into it, and to make it look like, you know, she's worn it a lot. She's been out a lot on her dragon in that armor, so it needed to be well worn.
Yeah.
And then she kind of knows it's a suicide mission, and is the queen that never was.
Ugh.
So we wanted to indicate that status and give her a headpiece, which is also kind of meant to be practical with the hair, keeping everything back. But yeah, it was quite a moment.
Since we have a little bit of time too, like talking about Rhaenys, but also just her family, the Valerians, also, who are people of the sea, which is really a whole different other color palette. I imagine you have that you and your team have to think about differently, and of the sea. So there's a lot of salt in the water too, I imagine, which adds to the aging. So what can you tell us about working with these characters specifically?
Well, Corlys is he's sort of the wealthiest man in Westeros at this time.
Yeah.
And also, has been living on ships. And so we wanted to reflect that, and that his color palette is, all the blues of the sea, and is so loyal to his house. He always is proudly wearing his sigil.
Yeah.
But then his grandchildren have really, Bela and Rhaenyra, have really aligned with Rhaenyra in series 2. So they've adopted the Targaryen colours, and so he kind of stands apart in a way. As if that, well, with Rhaenyra, when she's out of her armor, she's in navy as opposed to black or red, to show she's aligned with him. And she's torn between him and her Targaryen roots.
Yeah, it's really fun, this scene. You could really see that wealth on them, and their just connection and deep love for the sea just feels very real and authentic.
Yeah.
Caroline, this has been so lovely. I feel like I could talk to you for like an hour through each episode, which would be the world's longest podcast, but that'd be so fun. So just to wrap up, I just want to ask you, what has this show meant to you and your crew? It's such a massive series, and there's more to come. I just have to imagine this has been such a life-changing series to be a part of.
We'll be really fortunate to be able to do something that's so creative. It's a gift. It's a gift of a costume job, and I'm so grateful and fortunate for all the talent that we have, that we're to work with. I've got such a talented team, and everybody is really passionate about what they do and putting their best into it. And then it's lovely knowing that it's loved by so many people, and that we do go the extra mile in terms of little details, which you might not see on camera, but that in photographs, or that it's such a different medium now. When I did Downton Abbey, we didn't have social media in the same way, and things weren't picked up in the same way. But I know everybody knows that someone will, the little details will be really appreciated, and the lengths that we go to are appreciated and understood, and that's a really lovely position to be in, to know that your work is appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, I go to Comic-Cons all the time, and the amount of people I meet there dressed up as Rhaenyra or Aemond or Alicent, it's really moving every time, just the connection people feel to the costumes and these characters.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful that I got to finally meet you, costume designer Caroline McCall. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been such a pleasure.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Spencer, I love that. I love that.
It's so much fun. Oh, I miss this show. I wish that we didn't have to wait so long. But I get
season
it. Season
3.
We get it though. Like, take your time.
Yeah, I guess. Spencer gets it.
I don't want to rush it, but
that's so true. Yeah. That's so true.
So much fun. One thing I love about the interview was just talking about how Dragonfire really upsets the costumes. Like having to build this beautiful thing and then just really tearing it apart. Yeah, melting it down. And one thing I loved also, I was watching it behind the scenes too before my interview, but just like the thought process of how like this armor, especially for King Aegon, like melts to him, and just costume played such a heavy role in a lot of these devastating scenes that a lot of people, don't think about. But there's, the poor House of the Dragon costume team has to think about all these little things. So much fun.
So much fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, do we want to give a Stitch rating to season 2?
Oh, yes.
It's been a while since I've seen the whole thing from beginning to end.
Same. I think season 2 is a solid like 3.5 stitches.
Yeah.
Like, I know like behind the scenes there was some like back and forth about how many episodes it was gonna be, and we didn't get like that big climactic ending like we all wanted. But like this was a season that was getting like produced through COVID, so like understandable that like things didn't quite work out the way everyone wanted. And it was for Game of Thrones, it was a little slow of a season, but it looked incredible.
Yeah.
The costumes were on point. The special effects were on point. Like, I honestly really love Daemon's side quest.
Yeah, it was fun.
Like, I like it. Not quite what I wanted or what I expected, but it was so solid. And it really, I think it's set up the rest of the series in a really good way.
I feel like it's setting up season 3 to be a solid 5 out of 5 stitches.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also going to stick with a 3.5. It's funny. It's like there's some episodes on their own were like 5s.
Oh, yeah.
And then some of them were like 3s, So, I think those first couple episodes too, very dramatic, so much fun.
Yeah.
I also do love the ending, but I also too was like, that's it. So it is what it is. It's still a great season. I agree. It felt very like elevated in terms of the effects. So 3.5 stitches.
Yeah.
We're pretty aligned these days on our Stitch ratings.
Yeah.
I wonder why. Maybe we've just been doing this together so long that we're becoming the same hive brain.
I guess so. Cordyceps.
Let's play one costume rule them all. Hit it, Daniel.
The one costume to rule them all.
Spencer, what's your one costume to rule them all?
Mine is obviously, which I don't think I said this enough during the interview, my favorite character is Princess Rhaenys, the queen that never was.
Yes.
God, Eve Best. I think she's just so incredible. She kills this role. So that being said, my one costume rule them all was her dragon riding armor that she wears at the Battle of Rook's Rest. Which it is a version of the armor we see in the first season that was done by Jenny to meme. But as Caroline McCall said, that they did make some upgrades to it that make it feel more dragon rider ready. Plus, we get to add that like ancestral headpiece that's very, Targaryen like.
And it's very crown like.
It's very crown like.
Which she deserves.
She deserves it. Like she just goes down like a real iconic queen, and I just, that image is like seared into my brain, quite literally, because she gets barbecued.
My one costume to rule them all is a bit of a twofer. So we have Jacaerys and Baela in their stunning Targaryen, Valyrian, like almost like scouting costumes. The red, the black. I love Jacaerys and hers because it really calls back to a lot of Daenerys's costumes. Like the construction, his like one-shouldered cape.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yes, you are the future king and queen.
Yeah, it's almost like Daenerys when she got to Dragonstone and she found this closet full of good looks.
Yeah.
It was probably
she was like, these are too delicate for me to wear. Can we just remake these in my colors? And
yeah, exactly. She just goes full black.
She wears like a lot of black and blue and like white.
Yeah, those are great ones. I do really love the construction, especially like that V shape in the bodice. And yeah, I would definitely be House Black and I would be wearing one of these for sure.
You absolutely would.
Yeah. And with that that brings us to the end of House of the Dragon season 2. I have a feeling this isn't our last House of the Dragon episode.
I'd be shocked if it was.
Yeah, we might be coming back next season with another one. It should be coming out next year, right?
Yeah, or later this year.
Not later this year. I know
Probably early next year.
I know
like
that for a
spring.
fact. I don't know if the video will be published from our interview. I think it will be. You should be watching this on YouTube and you'll be seeing hopefully Caroline McCall. But if you all are excited about the 3rd season of House of Dragon, or if you want to tell us what your favorite costumes are from the 2nd season, which I know there are some, email us at theartofcostume@gmail.com, or of course, why did I say it like that? Of course, you can follow us on Instagram at The Art of Costume Pod, or TikTok at The Art of Costume. Let us know what your favorite costume is.
Yeah.
We love that. Or you could join our Discord. Please join us. And of course, if it's getting hot out there, we're getting ready to begin our hot girl summer over here. So theartofcostume.com/podstore for a t-shirt. Maybe we should throw in some like dragon rider armor there as well.
I wish we could afford the production of that, but we can't.
Well, maybe we can. I don't know.
We'll discuss this off mic.
Please leave us a 5-star text review on Apple Podcasts or rate us on Spotify. It really does help. And make sure you are subscribing on YouTube.
Yes.
Hit the like and subscribe button down below and join us for all of our episodes.
And everybody, we'll see you in 2 weeks.